you can tell that muscle's tight, right? And stay there for 10 to 15 seconds. So when you hold it there, in many cases, especially in some of the larger muscle groups as we stretch, you're going to feel the tension when you get to that point, and then about 10 seconds later, you're going to realize that tension's gone. It doesn't feel so tight anymore. Because that muscle finally, when you first get into the stretch, it's pulling against you. And then once you stay put in that position for a few seconds, that floodgate opens up and in comes all the circulation, and the muscle basically goes, ah, that feels better. Like they needed that blood flow, and you'll feel it release. So kind of watch for that. But 10 to 15 seconds is typically the appropriate amount of time to do it. We're going to go through some of these kind of quickly, so in the interest of time, I may not do that long on all of them, but when you do this for yourselves, try to give yourself at least 10 seconds. You don't have to do a certain number of repetitions of each of them. If you do them all once, that's better than nothing. I tell people, listen to your bodies. If you find that a particular area that we stretch is really tight, then stretch it multiple times and do it multiple times throughout the day. We always stretch bilaterally, so if your right shoulder is bothering you and you think you should stretch it, always stretch the left along with it. We want to give equal attention to both sides of our body. And make sure you breathe. Take some breaths. Don't hold your breath, just like any kind of exercise that you do. You want to breathe through it because you want to bring that oxygen in with the blood flow. Okay? Before we get started, I'm going to plant a seed. And the seed I'm going to plant is, I want you to think of a doorway, an ordinary doorway that you walk through multiple times a day at work. You can also think of one at home if you'd like, but focus on a doorway at work. A regular single doorway, not a regular double wide door. I don't see any. Oh, there's one right here. A doorway like this. Okay? So think of that, hold on to that, and we're going to come back to that. And I'll tell you why we're going to come back to that. So let's just start with what I call a sunshine stretch. And I like this stretch because it stretches a lot of muscle groups all at once, and you feel the immediate gratification of that stretch as soon as you're done. So stand with your feet about shoulder width apart. You want a nice wide base of support so you don't wiggle and wobble and fall down. Stand up nice and straight, arms by your side, and then just start to slowly raise your arms up and out. And when you do this, I want you to really exaggerate it, like stretch them out as far as they'll go, as though someone is pulling on your arms, okay? Really exaggerate it, and then go as high as you can, nice and slowly. If you're able to get all the way up to interlock your arms, then do it, and just reach for the sky. Take a nice big deep breath, and if you can't interlock your hands, that's okay, just reach for the sky. Anybody remember Stretch Armstrong, the rubber doll that you could stretch and pull in? That's what I want you to be. I want you to act on your way down now, like you're Stretch Armstrong, and somebody's pulling your arms real skinny. Okay, they're pulling, 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 nice and slow. And then when you get to the bottom, just shake out your arms, and then just shut it out. Tell me what you feel.
Tingling?
Tingling? Tingling? What else? What else do you feel? Cold. I can't hear you. Cold. Cold? Like a cool sensation. Cool sensation. Did you just have a yolk peppermint? Ooh, sensation. Anybody feel a little warm maybe through the shoulders and the upper arms? Yeah. Little tingly, warm, tingly, cool sensation. What's bad about that? Everybody likes a little warm and tingly, right? It's always associated with a good thing. Tell me all together now why you think you felt warm, tingly, cool sensations. Blood flow. Exactly. So how long did that take? I talked you through it. We probably spent 20 seconds on it, right? Immediate gratification. Have you ever tried to lose weight or bulk up or get that six-pack? You know, whatever it is that you're working toward, do you get immediate gratification? Do you decide I'm going to do it and go to the gym one day and all of a sudden you got a six-pack? No, right? It takes a long time. Most things that people plan like that, weight loss, getting in shape, that toning up, takes a long time. so the success rate tends to be really low because they give up before they get there. This is another really good selling point with stretching. It's immediate gratification. So just turn and kind of look over your right shoulder as far as you can go and just hold it there. Stand up nice and straight. Then come back to neutral. Look over your left shoulder. And then come back to neutral and kind of tilt one shoulder down or one ear down toward your shoulder. Don't shrug up, that's cheating, but just kind of bring your ear down. Now reach up with your hand and just kind of apply a little bit of gentle pressure. This helps a little bit with the neck. If you're somebody that puts all your tension in your neck and shoulders, this will really help you. Come back to neutral and then tilt your ear down toward the other shoulder and reach up and put a little bit of gentle pressure. Don't wrench down on your neck real hard, just gentle pressure. And then come back to neutral. Now put your chin to your chest and do the same thing. Interlock your hands over your head, just a little bit of gentle pressure. And I am one of those people that my stress all manifests itself in my neck and shoulders. So this kind of stuff really feels good. A lot of the upper extremity and upper body stretches that I'm going to show you are focused on this area because it's such a common place for stress and spasm. So now you can just take it for your shoulder, just take an arm and pull it across over to your other shoulder. Don't go up or down, just right at shoulder level. And feel that back part of your rotator cuff stretching. And you might feel it release. If it was real tight, you might feel it release right about now. Switch sides. Rotator cuffs are kind of a complex piece of physiology. They're a complex muscle group. They go in all different directions and they support a ball and socket joint that goes in all different directions. And that's why it takes a long time to recover. It takes a long time to rehab a shoulder. So now because we all do so much fine motor work with our hands, technology, whether it's typing, texting, gaming, turning a wrench, turning a screwdriver, vibratory tools. We're going to work with the hands a little bit. So let's just start by doing what's called the tendon glide. So you hold your fingers straight up. You can do both hands at the same time and just hold up here high so you guys can see. You don't have to go high. I'm just doing this so you can see me. You can go high if you want to. But just kind of, and you don't have to hold this in place. This is called a tendon glide. And this just helps to keep that tendon, the tendons, moving from your fingers to your elbow nice and smoothly, helps to lubricate them, because you don't, when you do a lot of fine motor work with your hands, which we all do, it can result in strain and sprain of your wrist. It can result in inflammatory processes in your wrist. Also tendinitis, which tends to start at the elbow. So just keeping that tendon gliding can help to counteract that. Now just squeeze a really tight fist. If you've got long nails, don't cut yourself. Squeeze a nice tight fist and now stretch it out nice and wide. And just doing this is going to help to get some blood flow into your hands and your fingers. Fingers and hands are really crowded. There's a lot of little bones and vasculature and just a crowded part of our body. And so if you don't do something to get that blood flowing down to your fingertips and throughout your hand, then eventually you're going to start to have tingling and your hand's going to start to hurt. So just squeeze, you're basically just squeezing blood in and out when you do this. You don't have to hold it in place, you can, but you don't have to. So then if you just take your arm out, straight out in front of you and pull your fingers back, you'll feel a nice stretch in your lower forearm. And you might feel some on the underside of your upper arm. Keep that elbow nice and straight. And then go to the other side, do the same thing. And then we always want to do the opposite direction. So now switch hands and gently put some pressure on the back of your hand. And can you all see me? Okay. I'm trying not to move around too much. So if this is your dominant side, you're going to feel it pretty significantly along the top side part of your forearm. And that's okay. Give it a good stretch. If you are doing a lot with your hands, if you're typing, if things anywhere. You don't need to designate a certain time or place. So if I'm walking from here to that door multiple times per day, I can just, if I just put it in my head that when I walk that way, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, maybe even some of this, right? You're spending time walking over there anyway, so you're not adding any time to your day to get some of those stretches worked in. And the biggest obstacle that we face with stretches, it's not getting people to buy into it, because that happens pretty naturally when you tell them what's in it for them. The biggest obstacle is they forget. The day goes by, they're leaving work going, oh man, my shoulder's real tight. Oh, I forgot to stretch today. So the biggest battle is in remembering to do it. That's why I say if you have organized groups where you do it together, that will help. If you think about something, somewhere that you walk a lot throughout the day, kind of plant that seed in your head, and then next time you're walking there, maybe you'll do a few stretches as you're walking. It's all kind of training your brain to remember to do these things, because they're not going to be any good to you if you forget them, right? Okay, so we did this stretch for part of the rotator cuff. Another one that works really well for the rotator cuff is to kind of put your arm up behind you and then reach up and pull a little, put a little bit of pressure on your elbow. Try not to throw your head too forward. But when you do this, you're getting a pretty good stretch on the other part of your rotator cuff. That first stretch we did where we put our arms all the way up in the air also helped with the rotator cuff. Switch sides. Some people just don't have the flexibility to get into this position. For me, the left arm doesn't move as well as the right, so I have more trouble getting my left arm up here. If you can't, thank you. If you can't, you can use something like this band that you're all going to have one of these shortly, or you could use a towel. Anything that you can put behind your head like this, and then walk your hands to the middle to go as far as you can, and you're going to feel that really good stretch without having to throw your hand over your head the way that I first showed you to do it. So if you want to use a towel or a band, and when you do it this way, you can get a stretch on both sides. You get a little bit of stretch on the lower arm as well, but you don't have to. So next we're going to talk about how to relieve some of that tension in between your shoulder blades. So a really easy way to do it, and there are multiple ways to accomplish this. Just put your hands behind your back, clasp your fingers together, and just raise your arms up and squeeze your shoulder blades together. Try not to lean forward, you'll lose some of the stretch. So just squeeze those shoulder blades together as tight as you can. Oh, I'm trying to get out of your visual range again. Okay, so that should feel good. And then also something as simple as just roll your shoulders. Rolling back, up and back and down. Anybody feel any snap, crackle, pop going on when you do this? I get it every time. That's not a bad thing. That sometimes people have told me then reverse, go forward. People have told me it feels like they've got marbles back there rolling around when they do this. Those marbles are little muscle spasms and tight tension spots that as you do this and you feel them rolling around, you're starting to break them down. So if you've got a lot of that, you've got to give a lot of attention to this part of your body. So now, remember I told you to think of a doorway, right? I planted that seed so you won't forget. So next time you walk through that doorway at work, I'm hoping you'll stop and do this next stretch. So I can ask for volunteers. Does anybody want to help? I won't hurt you, I promise. Come on up. All right, so what we're going to do is have you stand on this side of the doorway. See the door frame here? Just kind of hold on to it. Okay, and then lean forward. Just lean in like you're doing kind of a push-up. Do you feel that? Feel really good across your chest and the back of your shoulders. All right, so now turn around and face that way, and you can use like that, the outside of the doorway, and bring your lower, and do that again. And now, does it feel like a little bit different muscle group you're getting? Yeah. So, okay, you can come back. Okay, thank you. So, well, we just saw her, what was your name?
Monique.
Monique. What we just saw Monique demonstrate was super simple. How did it feel, Monique?
Wonderful.
Felt wonderful, right? I wouldn't take the, did we plan this in advance?
No.
No. I would never take the chance of asking for a random volunteer to go do something and then say, how did that feel? If I thought there was any chance they were going to say, I felt lousy. They always say, well, good, felt wonderful, I felt a good stretch, whatever, right? So I'm always confident they're going to give me. So you can go up high, shoulder width, or a little bit lower, and when you do that, you bring in a little bit different muscle group each time. So if you want to get a really good thorough stretch, you can do it at all 3 levels. I will give you a warning, when you come down lower, it's going to require a little bit more arm strength. So as you lean into that, you may feel like you can't go as far if your arms aren't strong enough. But if you can do a push-up, you're probably okay. But I always warn people, don't lean too far when your hands are lower, because if you don't have enough strength, you might not be able to hold it there. So I usually start with shoulder height. Okay? Now you can accomplish that exact same kind of stretch using the corner of a wall. Do I have another volunteer? Who else wants to volunteer? Come on up. So you can pick just any corner. Maybe all your doorways are double wide doorways and you can't use the doorway, so I'm going to put you in the corner. Let's pretend you've been bad. You're being punished. Okay, so yeah, stand a little farther away from the corner. Put your arms up, like, yep, and against the wall, and just lean in. Okay, and just stay there. How's it feel? Feels good? Feel a good stretch? Okay. Bring your arms in a little closer now. And right again. Not quite as good a stretch? No, yeah. So the farther you spread your arms out, the better of a stretch you're going to get. And I know that she told me earlier that she has a lot of tension in between her shoulder blades, so I'm glad you volunteered. That's something that will help you. The other thing, and you can do this with me, this is a way that you can do it one side at a time. Again, if you don't have a doorway or a corner, or you can do all 3 of these. Put your hand against the wall and just turn against it. And you're getting a really good stretch back here. And then switch sides. And keep your elbow bent. Don't straighten out your elbow. Because you want to have that squeezing the shoulder blades together kind of feeling so you can break down some of that tension. Feel good? All right, good. Well, thank you for volunteering. So there are multiple ways that you can address that area back here between your shoulder blades. I would recommend you use them all. Mix it up. Use whatever feels the best for you. My favorite is this one because I can really squeeze my shoulder blades, and that feels really good for me. But it's what we find that is the best benefit for you. All right, so now we're going to talk about stretching the low back, and I will show you some pictures when we get back in the room of some low back stretches that will work great when you're at home. I never ask anybody to lie on the floor at work or in one of these presentations, but these that I'm going to show you when you get back there are perfect for lying on the floor next to your bed before you go to bed. If you want to do it on your bed, you can do that, but I'll show you those in a minute. For the purpose of the workplace, we do a standing low back stretch. So for that, we're going to put our hands on our hips like so, and we're going to push against our hips. So we're not doing this, we're doing this, pushing against our hips. And keep pressure there because that's going to support your low back when you do this. And you're just going to look straight ahead and do a back bend. And remember, this is not a competition. We all have a different level of flexibility. So some are going to be like Gumby and others are going to be less flexible. Okay? Try not to look up because you stress your neck when you do that. Look straight ahead. Now keep that pressure on your low back as you come up, because it just so happens that as humans, this applies to everybody. It has nothing to do with your physique or how good a shape you're in. This tends to be the weakest section of our body. So the abdominal muscles and the low back muscles that support our low back are naturally the weakest muscles in our body. So generally speaking, the large majority of our population is not walking around with a six-pack. Generally speaking, some of you, I'm sure, have a six-pack, but the average adult is not that fortunate, right? So naturally, this is the weakest part of our body. So does it surprise you that backs are your #1 injury? Because the muscles that support your back are the weakest in our body. So of course we're going to have back injuries. So think about a technician that's working under the hood of a car, sometimes for hours on end throughout the day. Are they going to be able to bend at the knees, not at the waist? Can they do this and work under a car? No. Good body mechanics are not possible. So they've got to bend at the waist. They've got to bend over and reach in to do their work. One thing that will help is if they can brace their knees against the bumper, depending on what size vehicle they're on. If they can brace their knees a little bit before they bend over, that's going to be very helpful. But it's not always possible. So that low back bend is going to be real helpful. The muscles, the other muscles that support the back are the hamstrings. The hamstrings are the large muscles behind the upper part of your leg that connect your knee to your hip on the back side of your leg. They are some of the largest muscles and strongest muscles in the body. And so they are made to take a lot of stress. So because of the fact that we walk upright, they take stress all the time. Whether we're standing up, whether we're bending over, whether we're sitting down, they're constantly stressed. So it is very common that this muscle is tight on everybody. So you've been sitting in here now for a while. Now you just stood up. When we stretch this muscle, you're going to find, we don't have chairs, you're going to find that it's very, very tight. Everybody will be tight. But because this muscle supports your back, I recommend that if you're not going to do any other stretch that I show you, you should do this one. And you should do it multiple times a day, because if you don't keep your hamstrings stretched and lubricated, then they can only take so much of the strain from your back. So when we talk about back injuries, when you looked at the causes on the slides of the back injuries, most of it was from lifting, overlifting, some sort of exertion, right? So we usually associate back injuries with heavy lifting. But it doesn't always have to be the heavy lifting that causes the injury. Remember that old rubber band that I told you about? We didn't have to do much for it to snap. We stretched it out just like it's supposed to do. So you don't want your hamstring to snap. So here's what happens with your hamstring. So I'm going to bend over and I'm going to pick up that band off the floor, okay? We all know that the proper way to do it is to bend at the knees, not at the waist. But I want to demonstrate this for the people who can't always bend at the knees in the job they have to do, so like working under the hood. They can reach over, I can reach over to probably about, well, I'm already stretched today, so it's not fair. Let's say I can go to about there, and my hamstrings are supporting my back, okay? But now my hamstrings are tight, and they're going to lock up. They're not going to flex any longer. Does that mean I can't bend over and pick that up? No. I can still bend over and pick this up, but as soon as I extend past the point that my hamstrings are supporting my back, then my low back is taking all the exertion. And those are the weak muscles. So those are the ones that we don't want to put we don't want to put the hurt on them. We want to limit the exertion on them, put the exertion on your hamstrings. But if your hamstrings aren't well stretched, then you're not going to be able to let them do the work for you, okay? So this one needs to be stretched a lot. I'm going to demonstrate this for you, and then it's going to be hard for you to do it because we need a chair to do it, or you can actually use the wall. So let me show you how to do it first, then I'll have you all try to do it either with the benches, there's another bench back there, or with the wall. So when we do a hamstring stretch, we kick our foot up on, ideally, on the chair, okay? And I really want you guys to feel this because it's going to be, you're going to get the best stretch out of this one than any other stretch we did. And I have everybody put their hands on top of each other, arms straight on their upper leg. And the only reason I do that is because I want them to keep their back straight, and that'll help you. If you slouch, you lose the stretch. So then just slide your hands down and go as far as you can. Do you feel that in your upper leg? I have bad balance, so I have to hold on to the chair. Now reach down and pull your toes up toward you. That's a whole new exciting adventure. Because when you do that, now you're adding the calf muscle as well. So you're stretching everything from your hip to your ankle when you do this. And then always do both sides. Another way to do it that, oh heck, I don't think they'll throw us out. Just kind of walk up to the nearest wall, or you can use the bench in the back of the room. You can put your foot on the wall and do the same kind of thing. Straighten the knee and just lean forward. Nice. Y'all feel that? You're not gonna get to feel the calf stretch as well when you do that, because it's hard to do that on the wall. But when you get to where you've got a chair that you can do this on, reach down and pull your toes up if you can, and you're going to find that that's an awesome stretch. That's going to do ankle to hip. And now, perfect, you just demonstrated the next thing I was going to do. So you can do this without any prop, without using the wall. Just, am I okay for you? Okay, just lean forward. You kind of lean forward on one heel, then the other leg, and then just kind of put your head down here and bend down into it. If you're like me and you have balance issues, this is really hard, but I'm doing pretty good. I'm just shaking a little bit. But that's another way to just do a standing hamstring stretch. And if you pull your toes up toward you while you do this, you also get the calf stretch. So I don't think you got the best benefit of, you didn't experience the best way to do that stretch if you didn't use a chair or the bench, because to me that's the best way to do it. There's another way to do this when you're laying on the floor that I'll show you when we get inside. Okay, the next one we're going to do, and because of my balance issues, I'm going to hold the chair. If you have balance issues, you might want to get by a wall. Is just reach back, grab your foot if you can. Stand nice and straight, don't lean forward. Yeah, you'll want a wall to hold on to. So, oh, look at you. Do you do yoga? You're pretty steady. Great, I couldn't do that. I have to hold on. So, if you are not able to reach your foot, pull it up to your bottom, take your pant leg, and go as far as you can. Or, another way to do it is to back up to the wall. They're going to hate me put my feet all over the wall. Back up to the wall, and let's say you can only get your foot that high, then you back up to the wall, and you just kind of sink down into it, and you can get a pretty good stretch from doing that. Okay? The best way to do this, though, is, and if you can't grab your foot, you can always put something around your foot like this and pull it up this way. Okay? So there are different ways to do them, but you've all seen runners do that, right? I only stretch one side, so I got to do the other side. I think you guys all got both sides. All right. So because we didn't have the typical props that I would use, when you get back in the room, if you feel comfortable, use the chair and do a hamstring stretch, and then you'll get the benefit of that. So Marlon's going to go ahead and pass out these blue bands. And you know what, I had mine in there. Do you have enough? Okay. When you get this band, tie a knot in each end, like I'm doing. And that's just for safety. And so here's my safety disclaimer. I see the looks on faces as soon as he hands you that rubber band. He just handed you a projectile weapon. If you choose to use it as one, it can be a weapon. So please don't. Don't do that in front of the safety guys. So the knots that I'm asking you to tie are just going to help you to hold on to it better so that it won't go flying through the room. If you do let go of one and it goes flying, I hope it doesn't hit anybody because it's going to hurt. So hold on really tight, okay? So you want to do more of this, then these bands are yours to keep. If you want to do more of them, just Google resistance band exercises, and it will come up with a whole bunch of tutorials. You don't even have to read. It'll show you how to do it. So just a couple that we're going to do. So just hold it up over your head and stretch it out. Let it come down behind your head. And then very slowly keep the tension as you release it. So there's a tendency to want to stretch it out and then just let it snap. But you want to hold nice, steady tension through both sides of this movement. Then you can hold it out straight in front of you. And when you extend it, it's going to come in close to your chest. So hold on to those knots. Now, if you find that you're not getting a good, or like if there's not enough tension, wrap your hands around it. So I just went from this tension to, by wrapping my hands around, a whole different tension, okay? So you control the amount of resistance by how long or short you let the band be, okay? So now, I like to do this one just because it's fun. Put your hand on one hip, hold on to that knot, or you can wrap it around your hand if you want, and then put the other arm fully extended, elbows straight, out in front of that hip, and then you're just going to bring it up and out, up and out and down. It's kind of a disco move. Okay, and then do the other side. Now, if you find that that's just way too easy and you're not getting enough out of it, it doesn't take much of a shortening on this one for you to really feel the difference. Okay, if you wrap one hand around it, you're going to have a significant difference. What do you think of that? All right, another one that I'm going to show you, and it's going to, okay, I'm going to have you put one of the knots down on the floor, put the ball of your foot on the band right next to the knot. And the reason you're doing that is to keep that from snapping up in your face, okay? So make sure you keep weight on the ball of your foot. If you zone out for a minute and take the weight off that foot, you're going to get hit in the face, so please be careful. Then grab the other knot and just curl your arm up, okay? So now you're doing a very gentle, low impact arm curl that can be really good for you for strengthening your arms. So I added a little bit of strengthening. When you switch sides, you don't have to switch feet that you're holding it on. I always do, just so why. Make sure you put the, now you're stepping on the knot, I want you to step next to it. There you go. Because that knot can pull out from under your shoe. So you want to have the knot on one side of your foot and then the band underneath the rest. And what I do a lot of times is I just hold the knot between my fingers and curl. So now again, if you want to have more tension, more resistance, a little more strengthening, shorten the band, okay? I'm going to show you a picture when we get back in of how you can actually curl both sides with a longer band if you step on it with both feet, okay? How do you guys feel right now? Good. You like it?
It's like doing my class.
So, what do you think now compared to when I asked you earlier to take note of how you felt? Do you feel different? We did a really, really quick run through. And it took longer than it would take when you do this on your own because I was talking through so much of it and I talk a lot. So what we did was a quick run through without holding everything especially as long, but to give you an idea of what stretches you can do to get kind of all the major muscle groups. There are a lot more too. You can look up stretches and you'll find tons, different variations of the ones we did. What about temperature-wise? Do you feel a little warmer now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We didn't change the temperature in the room. In fact, it was cooler when we stepped out here. I thought it was warm in the other room. It was cooler when we stepped out here, but it doesn't feel cool anymore, right? That's because of what? All together?
Blood
Blood flow. All right, take your band